Let me tell you a little fable. It is about a land so ridiculous it isn't true. So untrue indeed, it's really quite ridiculous. Ruled by the ridiculously untrue, and over all the lands, ridiculed overall by all the truthful. Truly. What a place. A confusing place indeed. Right at the end of the world, it lied. So far away indeed, one of its slightly less contemptible rulers called it the arse end of the world. He also said that if you weren't in Sydney, you were camping out. So he was verily a bit of a jerk, but still one of the better leaders in the history of this backwards place. Over time, as our rich folk began to tire of bothering sheep and other unsuspecting farm animals, they began to direct their rapacious gaze towards the things that lay under the soil and started making large holes everywhere to see what it was and whether they could somehow take advantage of it. Yes, reader, despite them becoming somewhat less sheepish, their highest orders still were grubbers of the lowest order. But they enjoyed this new pursuit, as they were accustomed all their lives to exclaiming loudly, "Mine! Mine! Mine! Mine!" and expecting it. But the more these diggers dug, the harder they found to get out of their holes. So low did they go indeed, many wondered if they were trying to dig their way to China. And, in a way, they were. Large amongst these ardent excavation enthusiasts was a lady. Well, a female at any rate. Her name was genuinely No Hut. Amongst her finer features was her corpulence, as it made her seem somewhat more jolly. Alack, this was a ruse, as she was, in truth, a haughty, vain, talentless, arrogant daughter of a bigot. In fact, so poor were her characteristics. What's going on, Buzz? So poor were her characteristics. A famous artist was once violently ill on a canvas after seeing her pose grotesquely in front of him. The result was a first prize in National Portraits Awards. Amongst her ill-adroit henchpersons was a particularly oafish and rubicund fellow called Barnyard Juicy Goosey. So lecherous, lubricious and drunken was he, and so much the epitome of sloth, surpassing indolence, bad taste and insular insignificance, the slimy reptiles truly running this overlarge petting zoo and mining operation made him their deputy leader briefly, though of course far from briefly enough. It was a truly intoxicating time, even for the Underdownland, which had known far more than its fair share of such sessions, as was known all round. I'll get the next one. Barnyard's exploits were legion, including falling off. Sorry, what was that, Buzz? Including falling off a large public garden instalment. Something evidently so unremarkable to this florid-faced dipsomaniac. He barely paused in his important task at the time, slurringly shouting vile obscenities down the phone to his heavily pregnant wife and former party helper. He was photographed doing so by a passerby, for which this churlish lout was duly and roundly castigated. The passerby, that is. Barnyard was, as is proper, awarded the National Pisshead of the Year award, a significant national honour. Other towering figures included Tiny Abner, or the Mad Monkey, as he was widely known and well derided, a certified clown and ideologue with so few ideas he was heralded all over the Underdown land, as and beyond, in fact, as the most incomprehensible idiot of them all. Amazing. Allegedly a man of such astoundingly poor manners and flagrant dishonesty, even hideously disfigured cane toads from poor families were known to distance themselves from him. With this sort of pedigree, the Underdown lad made him chief belcher and toady of them all. For a brief and interesting period. Those were the golden days of this tipsy-turpsy place, and verily it showered down upon all the people, or at least those without prosperous mining enterprises and their lackeys. Also besmelling and routinely befouling himself was an habitual leerer, Skidmark MacDonald's, who was Lord of Engadine, or the Porcelain Throne, as it was then known. As little as possible should be said about Lord Skidmark or his pants, except that he was instantly detested by all the peasants he looked down upon and with whom he usually tried to energetically clasp hands with, even while he was burning their houses to the ground. It's true, he did once enjoy a brief period of public approbation when he went to a luxurious foreign seaside destination while the nation was experiencing a unprecedented period of national emergency. That quickly evaporated as soon as he decided to come back home, much to the disappointment of all, particularly the residents of the Underdown. It's a real horror to talk about, particularly when we think about Lord Skidmark, this wide brown land. Anywho, the fact is, it was the slimy crocodilians, the slimy reptiles who truly ruled over the people from the Underdown. And the most vicious of all was an ancient leathery crocodilian called Scrippet McCrock, The beginning of his reign, terrorizing the fearful populace, or indeed the populace, is so shrouded in antiquity, his true origins are difficult to properly ascertain. One popular legend has it he was the only child of a petty noble whose talent for myth-making in war, and especially about myth-making about a war, gained him some undue prominence. As for McCrock, once largely human, he was said to have voraciously gobbled up all his competitors until at last he was king of them all, or the Sun King, as he enjoyed being known. Though not himself a major player in the whole creation business, he was a strong supporter of the practice and made grubby pamphlets, many stained with the blood of his prey, to help other grubbers. Hence, he became known as the Dirty Digger, one of his many epithets. Of course, he also dabbled in sheep from time to time. Over the ages, his dark soul so permeated fully his being, it began to take over his physical nature. Towards the end, his countenance became so repellent, even just laying eyes upon his ghastly form caused many to instantly expire from shock and fear. Once, after disrobing at a crowded beach, the carnage was indeed so colossal, the International Criminal Court launched a prosecution for crimes against humanity. There is more that could be said about this horrifying snaggletooth monster, but perhaps just one more might suffice. His heart was so dark, he once raised the spirit of a murdered teenager by issuing a necromantic incantation over her personal phone. This was so shocking, the devil himself issued a cease and desist notice and filed a complaint with the ACCC. You don't mess with those bastards. Thus ends the strange and unsettling story of the Underdown Land. But now, children, we come to the moral of this immoral tale, which is as follows. You should always be kind to defenseless animals, but will dig yourself into a deep pit if you show the same courtesy to ghoulish predators who want nothing more than to devour you and take all your sheep. Good night.